Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
It is my favorite band, among a list of other bands, but it's up there. For you, where does it rank?
Oh, it's number one.
Number one.
Yeah,
There's
Iron
no.
Maiden is my favorite band. Yeah.
It's one of those things. I think most people, when they make that decision, it's not an either or.
Yeah.
They appreciate everything. Like I'll appreciate Dream Theater and I'll appreciate Metallica and Megadeth, and the list goes on. Whatever. But there's something about the progressive nature of long, deep cuts and layered upon layers upon layers upon thought process, and a band that has been touring, living the life, not living the life, coming back and whatnot, maturing. These are 65-year-olds still playing live better than any one of us could do, and even their worst music is better than the best music you'll ever put together. So I want to do it a bit different, and we've kind of prepped about this. I want to go back to your first concert.
Yep.
Which is one of my favorite albums, which is kind of funny because most people don't pick that one, but it's got my favorite song of all times on it, and I'm sure you know which one. In any case, your first impression of an Iron Maiden song first, and then evolving to the concert. But more importantly, for those of you that are listening to this and have a history, this is the one concert you cannot find live video of because they decided not to do a DVD. And Maiden is known for a lot of their live captures of their events. They're really known for it. But this one, they did not spend the money, and you got to see it, and I'm actually envious because it was stellar. So tell me about it.
So this was 86, so I would have been, I think, 15 at the time, Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. I wasn't able to go to the Power Slave tour, the previous tour. I was too young, but definitely wanted to be there. And then so Summer in Time came along. I knew it had to be there. And album was amazing, staring at the Derek Riggs artwork on Somewhere in Time, and you talk about Easter eggs.
Oh my God! To this day, you're still finding them.
It's just incredible. Just the whole.
And we're talking when it was still album size.
Yeah,
this is a work of art across
absolutely
both covers, or both sides of the album.
Absolutely. So just that experience alone, just looking at the artwork, and the music was amazing, but the live show. This was my first experience seeing Iron Maiden, and it took up the whole arena. So when they performed their show, there wasn't just the stage show, which Maiden is known for. There was inflatables throughout the arena, which, I guess that would be comparable to a Pink Floyd experience or something. But these spaceships above you and lighting up, and then Bruce comes out in his outfit, and there's all lights all around him. And then the giant Eddie comes out, with the gun and the Clint Eastwood Eddie look. And then, the stage rises up, the drums go up in the air, and there's this giant Eddie, with two hands as platforms and the drum on top of his head. For a 15-year-old kid just starting to learn to play guitar, that was mind-blowing. Yeah. And the Somewhere in Time shirt, it doesn't exist anymore because I wore it down to the threads. It was my favorite T-shirt. It was my favorite concert, and it just blew me away. It was amazing. Amazing.
It's funny because most people in Canada would have experienced Maiden on the Power Slave because in terms of because that's when they did a significant amount of touring in Canada. They spent a lot of time in Canada. They toured out of Canada with that album, and it's also the one that has the Live After Death. So that's where most people would have been getting media exposure to a live show. And I think in many cases, for those that were late to the game, and I was very late to the game, so I'll be the first to admit it, I more than made up for it, trust me. But for those that just heard around Power Slave, that tour was likely the first tour that they would have had the chance because they would have been late to the party in many cases. And I think you may have either fell into that because of your age, as you say, you weren't allowed, but also just the logistics of sometimes you hear about it a bit too late, and they're already gone. And then you have Live After Death come out, and you go, "How did I miss that?"
Yeah. So the Power Slave was the songs from Power Slave is what I remember of my earliest Maiden experiences, but it was the Live After Death album for sure. I know all the back chatter, all the dialogue that Bruce talks to the audience. I still hear that when I listen to the studio versions of the songs, because it was such a great album.
How can you not hear "Scream for Me" before Iron Maiden, even when you listen to it on an album?
Absolutely. All the chatter that was in there became part of the songs. So you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, to your point, "Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner," what do you do do when a bird shits on
Yeah.
you. You know, like to this day, he makes reference to that, right? And that was a flub in many ways, right? But to your point, it's the live experience, and for me, as much as I love the studio albums, it's their live cuts that have always made it for me, because any musician that is able to do that repeatedly,
Yes.
accurately, to that level of scale. Like, I can do riffs, I can do intros of songs. You give me, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner and tell me to do that flawlessly? No. And then you want me to do how many other songs that are as complex? No. I'm not a god. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if you try playing Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner on bass, like I'm a guitar player by trade, but your wrist is killing in minute 3, and you're like, oh my god, I still got 10 to go.
I made the mistake of buying, when Rock Band was a thing, I bought the Iron Maiden things, and even on the little shitty Rock Band, which is not a guitar, but it was still testing your ability to follow along. I'm like, what the heck? This is not Through the Flames and Fire or Dragon Force. This is Iron Maiden. The complexity is like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because the same thing happened when Metallica released their, it wasn't their Death Metallic. It was, what was the one before Death Metallic? Or maybe it was Death Metallic.
Death Magnetic?
Death Magnetic, that was it, sorry. Death Magnetic. They released it on Guitar Hero. And it was the first time I actually heard the album was actually playing it.
Oh, wow.
And it was a weird experience because I was actually in many ways screwing it up. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was the first time that I actually...
Interesting.
It was weird. I actually blogged about it because it was something I never experienced. But when it comes back to Maiden, all the live albums, let's be honest, if you get 2 good singles off of any album, if you get a third song that's stellar, I'll buy the album. That was the old rule back. And, but, if it's got 3 good songs, it's worth the album. But let's be honest, most albums have 7 odd stinkers. And the nice thing about live is it's the stuff...
Right.
that's not the deep cuts. Now you miss the deep cuts. Like when I hear them play something like Still Life live.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You'll never hear that ever again in your life.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So there's something to be said about that, but the live is just it's there.
Yeah.
So I'll bring us one concert forward, and I want to kind of go deep dive on this one because we're actually going to talk specific songs, and we're going to use one tour for it. So this one is the one that was my first.
Yep.
You would have gone to it as well. More importantly, we were within a week, I believe, of seeing the tour because I saw it in Ottawa, and you saw it at Maple Leaf, I believe.
At the exhibition stadium.
At the exhibition, that's right.
Yep.
And if you look online, the online world says that Anthrax opened up for me, but no, it was Guns N' Roses. It was Guns N' Roses. And I remember... Slash complaining that because he couldn't speak French in Quebec, he got no pussy. And he's saying this in live on stage in Ottawa, surrounded by half the French population, right? So no, it was not Anthrax. It was Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden for the 7th tour of a 7 tour supporting Seven Sons of Seven Sons. So what I want to do is get your impression. Because this goes back to the point of live pulls together a lot of albums.
Yep.
We're just going to go down the list and give me your 2 thoughts on what that song is relative to Maiden as a whole. Does that kind of make sense?
Sure.
Okay, so a lot of these obviously come off of the Seventh Son album, which for those that may know or may not fully know, it was their first opera type album. It's a very complicated, and I made the mistake of actually playing it backwards. I put B-side on first. When I received it, I completely messed up. So the song that I first heard was Seventh Son, not the one that kicks off this particular concert, which is Moonchild. So your thoughts on Moonchild?
So that was at the time where they were using synth, right? So,
they really started kicking into synths on that one, yes.
So,
and they actually introduced the Steve's, the bassist Tech would do the live sample playing live.
Yes.
So they actually had an extra member in the band at that stage. Yep.
So, and that it almost feels like a concept album.
It is a concept album.
When you go from beginning to end, and the way Bruce sings the beginning and the end of the bookends, right? Like when it's done, you're like, oh my God, I just went through a journey there. Like it was like a mystical journey when you're listening to that. But yeah, Moonchild, I loved. I love that introduction. I was always very much into the synth sound, so I listened to a lot of Ozzy at the time. So Mr. Crowley and that, like our band had a keyboard player and we had pipe organ sound. So for me, it wasn't an issue. There was a lot of metal guys that were like, nah, they got that synth sound. It's not Iron Maiden anymore. But I loved it. I thought Moonchild was fantastic, and just that whole build up. The great thing about when you put on any Maiden album, whatever the first song is, you know, okay, that's what they're going to open the show with, and you can almost imagine it happening. So
It's how you remember an Iron Maiden show opening.
Yeah.
As you say, when you say Churchill's speech with Aces High, people know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
And to your point about Moonchild, in the context of the album, it summed up the entire album quite nicely.
Yes, yeah.
I really thought, and considering this one obviously was themed, it played into the stage play as well,
Yep.
which was always nice. So that went into another song that's on here, which in many ways I think is actually one of the strongest songs on the album, "The Evil That Men Can Do."
Oh, just brilliant
The
song.
weaving of that song, it's just it just flows.
Yeah, and Nico's bass drum, like when you want to get deep into the song, like just every time you listen to the song, you know, I love the guitar work and I love the melody lines, and then you're like, what the hell is he doing on his bass drum? And he's like one foot, right? He's not a double bass drummer, right? And you hear the on the bass drum, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. But
you hear him on the beginning of "Where Eagles Dare."
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Wow. Yeah, my foot gets sore.
Just thinking about it
after a minute.
And a lot of people don't necessarily give the drummer the credit, but let's be honest, these are all highly qualified, highly competent players. And
Absolutely.
Nico McBrain is stellar as a drummer and uses every single bit of drum kit that's given to him. That led into one of my personal favorites from an album, "The Prisoner." Thoughts?
The Prisoner?
Yeah, the song.
Oh, I love The Prisoner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, did you ever watch the TV series?
Yes.
Okay, so there was a certain aspect of being brought back into it. I'm assuming you saw the series before?
No, after.
Okay, so it introduced you to the
Yes,
series.
absolutely.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
So the opening bit, from the TV series is stellar. And doing that live, I thought just this going back to the drums. There's something about the beat on that one at the beginning, and
but that did cause me to look out for the series to seek out.
I love the series. Don't get me wrong, but you have to be completely on acid to understand the last two episodes of that series. It's just I don't know what happened near the end there, but it's I've watched it all, and it's a stellar concept. I really do believe so, and I think it really tells a lot about Steve Harris's pull from books and concepts and how. Unlike Vincent Price saying, "I don't get out of bed for $10,000 and I won't do your intro for a number of the beast," they said, "Fine, take it, go for it, have fun."
That's a great interview on one of the DVDs. I think it's the Rod Smallwood talking when they're talking about being on the phone with the
Patrick
McGowan, asking about using it, and he's like, "Do it."
Yes. But here's the thing: most of the things, and you see it a lot on Twitter now, because a lot of those conversations you can see it publicly.
Yeah.
A lot of artists, when you get them and they like it, go for it. Yeah. Sure, I'm going to enjoy this as much as possible. And then you get like To Tame a Land, which was Dune, couldn't be called Dune because author. Okay, on to the next song, Infinite Dreams.
Oh, yeah, beautiful song.
Melodic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot slower.
It played into the theme of the album too, right? Because it was the lull of that opera, if you will, right?
Absolutely. And you really get to see Bruce shine a lot. In the heavier stuff, he shines in everything that he does. But when you hear some of the slower things that he does, you really hear the power in his voice and how he kind of weaves his vocal lines. And
there was not a lot of slower type songs prior to this album similar to that in many ways. I think that's when they started giving him permission almost to play with that type of style.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking back, what would be an Infinite Dream prior to that? And I'm drawing a blank. I'm sure there's plenty that I'm forgetting, but it was that first, it was that first one when I think about it.
Yeah.
And there's been a few since then, but I think it was one of those, I'm playing with this voice here. And you really do hear it.
Yeah.
I think it is a stellar. I don't think of it as a Maiden song per se, but it is definitely a Bruce.
Yes, yeah. You could
in that sense.
You could stamp that as a Bruce.
Yeah, and telling considering what was happening a few years later, and the solo album and so forth. So really quickly down the Trooper. First of all, we are drinking Trooper beer. So
Yes,
first of all, if
yes.
we're going to say Trooper, we might as well go
Cheers.
cheers.
Yep.
Okay, so
the irons.
up the irons, exactly. And this is a good beer. I do drink a lot of it. So
very good.
if Robinson Brewery is listening to this, I do like your beer.
And I do as well.
There you go. So the Trooper Classic, Peace of Mind.
Oh, absolutely. That was the first song I learned on, the first Maiden song I learned on guitar.
And that is not an easy song.
No, I never picked easy songs when I first started playing. I was like, I got to learn the hard stuff right away.
Yeah.
So all the early songs were like, Mr. Crowley, Trooper, just any of those kind of fast metal songs. Those are what I gravitated to first. But,
When you hear the gallop,
yep.
which is pronounced in a lot of songs, like the gallop is there across the board on so many songs, but it's so prevalent in that one.
Yep.
It's the Iron Maiden gallop, and yes, it's I say gallop because obviously horses in this case, but it's there. It's that and you hear it so often and you don't hear that beat in other bands. It's so them.
Yeah, yeah.
I
heard it in what was that? The Muse song. Oh God, I can't remember the name of it. But it had that kind of had a little bit of that gallop in it. Anyway.
They pull from so much.
Yeah,
that's a very talented band right there in terms of what they produce. Especially live as well, to be able to do that level of complexity live. Moving on to, I always laugh at this one because you never really saw what was coming with this one. Can I Play with Madness?
Oh yeah.
So first of all, the video.
The video. I was just about to say. You get that for me. Like it's just locked in with the video. Like every time I hear
is
that
the video
song,
to me. I don't see it without the video.
Absolutely. Like it was at the time too. They went with a concept because they weren't really into like videos. It was always live performance music videos that they would release, right?
Well, they would typically take cuts from their larger production work that they were doing for their live set.
Yeah, and then to see this, they got to play around a little bit. It was great because that was what we saw on Much Music over and over again, and it was
it became very popular because it was kind of poppy.
Yeah.
Okay, and it definitely hit the market far more, and I believe it is one of their highest selling in terms of back in the day in terms of that traditional single, and live it actually plays well.
Yeah.
But I can't think of it without thinking of the video. It's just so ingrained in that, and it reminds me also when you think of what Bruce did, let's say, 10 years later with his movie.
Yeah.
It seems stylish in that similar vein, if you will.
Yeah.
We're moving on to the next one. This one's difficult for me, but Heaven Can Wait.
Oh yeah.
Trying to remember it?
No, I know the song. Where it fits in there.
Oh, gotcha.
The chorus definitely runs through my mind a lot.
Well, it was built for the crowd.
Yeah,
you could tell that it was built for.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a shame they don't do it as much anymore, but it definitely was a in concert experience. It's like what we were saying about it earlier, Fear of the Dark.
Yeah.
Okay, Fear of the Dark live is an experience. Heaven Can Wait live is the same thing.
Yeah,
I found for that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think in many ways the Fear of the Dark replaced it in the set list. If they had not come up with Fear of the Dark, I think they would go back to that because that was the one where, and like I said, I know this personally, that they would pull from the crowd and you would be on stage with the band and it was spectacular to pull that off. But
it's funny. That's probably why I don't go to it to listen to because it's such a live song.
Oh, it's totally a live song.
It's, it sounds great when you listen to it, but you got to see that song live.
And like I said, I'm grateful enough to be able to say I got to see it from the stage. Okay,
awesome.
so to be able to look out at 20,000 people, and you only see the first few rows, let's be honest, which is why you can pull off that shit. But that moment where you're called on stage to go around Steve Harris and do the the whoa whoa whoa. But what I always tell people, that moment, very similar to your kids when you were talking about them earlier, where they got to do their Q&A and they're in front of a large group.
Yeah.
Once I was able to go on stage in front of 20-odd thousand people at an Iron Maiden show and go, whoa, whatever, and run off, and that was it. I never had an issue public speaking after that. And a lot of people don't know this. Whenever I would in the early years, we're talking 20 odd years ago, I would sing "Heaven Can Wait" in my mind as a calming mechanism.
Awesome.
Before I would go up
Yeah.
to present or whatever. It was my go-to relaxing, because if you could do that,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I don't think you would ever look at it on an album and go, "Oh, that's a song that
Yeah.
I'm remembering." But live, it was an experience, and not just for the people that were lucky enough to be on the stage, but the crowd. It's like running free. It had that
Absolutely.
live,
Yes.
presence, which brings us my favorite song, hands down, "Wasted Years."
Oh yeah, fantastic! And what a great song. Like it's overlooked as a song when you hear about songs about being on the road.
Yes.
Like it's overlooked.
Oh yeah, no, it's not Wanted Dead or Alive, Bon Jovi, wah, 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 but oh my God, that is such a story to his wife.
It really is. Like, and it's a shame that does get overlooked. You get the Turn the Page all the time. You get the Dead or Alive. You get those road songs, but like Wasted Years, this is amazing. And then it's interesting now with YouTube, when you type in Wasted Years covers, you see all these people doing it in their own style, and the lyrics really hold up. It translates really well across genres.
Yeah.
Like it's a fantastic song, really well written, and obviously heartfelt.
And what I love about it as well is it played into the video for it, played into the album cover. It was all about the history of Maiden.
Yeah.
If anybody ever listens to that video, I mean the original video, not the one they have based on the live concert of that song, you get a crash course in the history of Maiden.
Absolutely.
In that video, and it's just a perfect package.
Yep.
And like I said, back then I bought all the singles, so I've got all the all the album covers from that era, which is spectacular.
Yeah.
But that one, like I said, the B-side has "Reach Out," which is an Adrian Smith vocal. And whenever you get to hear "Wasted Years" live, and you get Adrian on the mic for bits of that song, and especially when Bruce will pull the mic away from him to piss him off and that type of stuff, because a lot of people don't really appreciate, I think, the vocal tone that Adrian brings live.
Oh yeah.
It's there. Not just the guitar sound, but even when he just steps up to the mic, it's it's. Well, I'm biased.
And even the bridge in that song before the lead solo, like it's beautiful. Like it really is, like everything's doing something different, but it all works so well. Like Steve Harris's bass,
Oh my God,
it's all over the place. It's like a solo on its own while the guitar solo is going on, but it's not jumbled. It's not like it's not two guys just go off on their own. It's brilliant, brilliant.
I think it's also, and once again, I show my bias towards Yannick Gears on this one, as much as I respect him as a guitarist. It wasn't the muddled aspect of the '90s Maiden. You had Dave Murray.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave Murray doing his stellar job with his riffs. Like he is just. I think when I think of Judas Priest, I think of that. He would have been in Judas Priest. He's that part of the guitars. But then all of a sudden you flip into the flow that is Adrian Smith. And on the last album, there's one song, I forget what it was, but it's almost as if he took his Wasted Years riff and repurposed it on it. And it is the same riff, isn't it?
Yes.
And I listen to it and I can't listen to that song, because to me that riff only belongs on that song.
Yeah.
But the solo on it, the pacing of it, and I think it got a lot of airplay as well. And I think that's a song that most people outside of the Power Slave songs might go, "Oh, I know that song," or "I've heard that song." But to me, studio-wise, it's solid. It's just absolutely solid.
Yep.
And like I said, it's unfortunate because as much as I love that song, which is a hallmark of the first concert you went to, I was leaving the stage and making my way back to my seat while that song was playing. And that's one of my biggest regrets from that concert, because that opening bit where he's just going up the E string.
Yeah.
God, it's such a beautiful bit. So this brings us up to The Clairvoyant.
Oh yeah, great song.
And once again, that playing off of the overall opera of it. A lot of they were, as you say, playing with the synths, even the guitars. They were introducing synths back then. I don't think we hear much of that as much now.
No.
I think they're now the wall of power, for lack of a better term. Very quickly, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Very long song, but not...
Love that song.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
It's...
It runs in my head often, and sometimes I'll catch myself in the middle of the song, and I'm like, "What the heck, Maiden song is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's Seventh Son, Seventh Son," because you know, as there's
It's yep,
songs that have so many different parts
yep.
in them, and no, I just love that song. Yeah,
It was, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is
yeah,
Rhyme of the Ancient
yeah,
Mariner. Let's be honest. But I think it was better in many ways. It was definitely more complex. I found more stylistic.
yeah.
And like I said, I made the mistake of when I played that album the first time. I started on the B side, and that was my first introduction to that album was Seven Son of Seven Son.
Yeah.
It's like you're kicking off with a 15-minute song, awesome, whatever.
And even the breakdown in Seventh Son, where it's much like the breakdown in Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, where it's that misty kind of sound, and then it just slowly builds up, and it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
When you compare it to some of the other long cuts that they've done,
Yeah.
some of them, the other ones feel strained.
Yep.
We're
Yeah.
trying to make it the next 15-minute that we did. That one did not feel strained, and it solidified that album.
Yep.
It really did. This brings us to a classic, Number of the Beast.
Love it. That's really what got every one of us, as teenagers in the circle we were in, interested in what the heck is this saying? What is this? What is this number from?
Yeah.
And we were all reaching for our parents' Bibles or grandparents' Bibles, flipping to all the good parts, right? To what are they talking about?
What is this Revelation stuff?
Yeah, and this devil seems amazing. There's all this religious imagery, and it was just amazing. Just the whole the introduction, right?
There was a documentary. I forget which one it was, but they were talking about how the producer for that album had Bruce do the opening bit of that a lot of times, for lack of a better term, because he was not believing the lyrics, and he, I guess, took a walk or something like that, and then came back and did it. And you listen to it with them. If you picture Bruce Dickinson going for an eerie walk, doing that opening bit, that was it. That was his final cut. And oh my God, when and a lot of people obviously think that that's Vincent Price or whatnot, but who cares? More people remember the person that wasn't Vincent Price in the world, and people I think remember Vincent Price, period. Because that opening bit should have been Vincent Price. He screwed up by not doing that, because I think more people would know his name now, which is a shame, but that's just me. We're bringing up to this, to me, and I'm giving this away, best live song, period. Okay, especially more now that you've got three guitars. Hallowed Be Thy Name.
Oh, incredible. Incredible. There's classic Maiden, Maiden through and through. You can sum up a lot of what they are by playing that song, right? Just all the elements that are in it. There's a YouTube video of these guys that don't listen to metal, and they put on songs for the first time, and
the reaction,
and it's Hallowed Be Thy Name, and to watch these guys listen to it, and they're like, whoa, hold on a second, press pause there, and they're talking about the lyrics and the music and the build up, and I'm like, that's what I felt when I first heard Hallowed Be Thy Name. Like, it's just so eerie and spooky, and the chimes going off, and it's just and just build, and then all of a sudden it kicks into it's brilliant.
Well, and like
Classic.
I said, when you see it live, when they take the center stage at the end of the song, it just becomes that entire band moment.
Yep.
And to me, that song is how I like to see the concert end. Like traditionally, when I think of a set, like that's the end for me. Not the case in many cases, but. Yeah, and it's the one song, and this is where I give Yannick, some of my breaks. I want a third guitarist on that one live. Yep. I want that wall of guitar on that song because the layers are there, and the crowd gets into it. And back to your point about the reaction people, I saw one just recently, and this is a separate band, but he listened to Master of Puppets for the first time, the song, not the album, but the actual song. And just before Kirk gets into the solo, his jaw literally drops, his eyes pop out of his head, and for the next 2 minutes of that solo, and and all the stuff that went with that, the facial reaction was priceless. It was just priceless, But yeah, there are certain songs where I know of an experience that someone, upon hearing that song, a female individual, came. Just from listening to that song on Rock in Rio, it was just that good of a experience. It's a great song. It's just spectacular.
Brilliant.
Okay, moving quickly along, the classic that gets played every friggin' concert, And how can you be a band after all these years and still play one song every night? Iron Maiden.
Well, that's it's you can't remove it,
You
right?
can't remove it.
It's like showing up without a couple band members.
Yeah.
Really, like it's it's their signature. That's that's what started it all,
Yeah.
right? That's the beginning. That's
Well,
the
also live, the nice thing is there's a reveal coming.
Yeah.
As you say with the I forget the album all of a sudden the Somewhere in Time tour.
Oh.
Where all of a sudden the drum kit rises and Eddie shows up,
Yep.
and now it's mostly a guy walking on stage or something behind
Yeah.
the kit or whatnot. But yeah, it's not about the song at that point.
Right.
When all of a sudden he kicks in and
Yeah.
something's about to be materialized and the entire crowd's going to go. But I've always been impressed by certain bands, Kiss as an example or
Yep.
whatnot, that are capable of playing the same song 40 years
Yep.
into their career. And this is a song I figured they must have played Iron Maiden. What's 20 times, let's say 200, Like it's not a far stretch to think that you're into the 4,000s
Yeah.
of playing that song. That's, you got to love a song to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about it, like it's a pretty good thing to have to do 4,000 times when you consider how many times we get up, go to work,
Yeah.
and then come home, right? If someone said you have to play Iron Maiden for the rest of your life, it's not a bad gig.
There are worse things in life. Like I said, I always joke
Yeah.
that them at their worst is you at your best in some
and
cases.
like I don't know. I don't know. I'm not Iron Maiden, but I'm gonna go out on a stretch say that the audience has got to give a lot back to them from that when they play that, and you look out and you see all these faces and how much joy you're bringing to
Yep.
these people. Like it's got to be something.
There's one clip, I forget which live set was, and it's Dave Murray in our while he's playing Iron Maiden. At one point in time, the crowd does what the crowd does, and he just reaches out his arms, and you can tell he's just absorbing that energy. And as you say, I think at that point in time, if that's what they get
Yeah.
from playing that song every night, that's a pretty good reward.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. That typically brings us into an encore scenario or whatnot. And in this particular case, we ended with 3 songs that I could see off the set list. A Run to the Hills.
Yep.
Classic.
First heard it from the video because it was Much Music that where I would have first heard the song because they played that quite a bit. The footage of the Western.
Yep.
And I remember, in public school and everybody singing it. Everyone was doing like the vibrato and Bruce's
Yep.
voice.
Yeah.
Everyone
Oh my
would,
God, yeah.
Everyone would imitate that. So, and when my kids were born, I would play that for them when they were really young, and they all sang the words and they got into it. So it's just got a great rhythm. The beat is it's got a good tempo. The riffs are awesome. The chorus is amazing. Yeah.
Oh, it's the storytelling is typical of a lot of. You learn more from reading the lyrics in many Iron Maiden things than you do reading some books. Brings us to
a history lesson is what you get from them.
totally.
And that's going back to Wasted Years. That's why I think Wasted Years is such an amazing song because for the most part they're giving you history, but in this they're opening up about themselves.
Yeah.
Like you really, it's them. On
And
the
back
page,
then
I
they
think.
did not open at all.
No.
Even it wasn't until like Flight 666 that they actually did documentary type stuff.
Yeah.
You had no insight into this band.
So
back
Wasted
then.
Years is a really good door into them, and
Yeah.
that's why I think that song's really translated well over different genres.
It's going to pain me when I don't hear that one live, and I don't think it's on the set list on this tour, which is a shame. 2 Minutes to Midnight.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes.
The only thing, and once again, I feel bad for Yannick right now. He tends to do the opening bit live now, which to me that's Adrian. That's an Adrian song. That's an Adrian beat. That's an Adrian crunch.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Yannick does a great job with it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's just got solid fingers. Like
Yeah.
this guy can hit the notes perfectly because strength and,
Yeah.
and all that. But to me, when I hear Adrian play those tones, there's a certain something there that it's not just playing the notes. He's playing the song.
Right.
And because he wrote the song.
yeah.
So it's like when he does Wasted Years, he's in that moment. You
Yeah.
know he's
Yeah.
back in that moment, and to be able to do that thinking about what you were writing, goes a long way. And I think
For
that
sure.
the 2 Minute to Midnight to me is another classic Adrian Smith song, but that's, I'm showing my bias yet again. And once again, this typically ends with something you don't hear play as often, but back in the day it was huge, Running Free.
Oh yeah, Running Free. That listen to it to death on the Live After Death
Mhm.
album. Just the extended
Yeah.
Running Free, right where the audience participates for an hour, right? It's just amazing. Yeah,
Well, and I think that to me that when you look at a lot of their songs, and the reason I picked this is there are certain songs on that list that you can tell were written or at least developed for the purposes of live.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
they were scripted, and you still see that in days like this, like Blood Brothers.
yeah.
When
Yes,
they sat down and did Blood, I can't even say it
Blood
all.
Brothers. Yeah,
Thank you. They pictured
yep.
the crowd. When you hear some of the songs. So to be in a band where you're going to have 50,000 people, 20,000 people, know the song, react to it, do their beats, da
Yeah.
da 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 da. You start scripting that into your songwriting, I think.
Yeah, I don't see how you could not when you're
Mm.
doing so many live shows. Like
Yeah.
you must be writing riffs and like, oh yeah, the audience is going to be all over that one, right? For sure.
So,
And now, I
yeah,
mean, now because there's so many people into Iron Maiden, young and old, like it's almost a given that people are just going to be singing through almost every song. Like every song they have has a cool little melody on the guitar that just people just vocalize you don't expect. But yeah,
the nice thing about having that many instruments and that many styles of play on stage and different pieces of it, you can listen to the same concert and pick up something
oh yeah,
as you
yeah,
say, if you
yeah,
just listen to Nico McBrain,
yes,
or what I love to do, and once again showing my bias, the Adrian Smith
yeah,
tracks
yep,
where it's just his bit, and the soulful nature of that tone.
hmm
There was what was it? Foo Fighters. I think they had Wasting Light. I think was the last album, and they had one song where they brought back Chris from Nirvana to do a little bass piece on it. And you're listening to the song, and all of a sudden this bass kicks in, and it's like, where was that all this time? Okay, and immediately you're reminded, oh, that was Nirvana. This bass sound is so unique to da 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 da, and to hear it in a Foo Fighter, and it's like, boom, there it was, right? And to me, whenever I hear an Adrian Smith influence on a song, when it's not there,
yeah,
it's so noticeable. Whereas, no offense, once again, I can remove Yannick from the equation. I can't pick one thing of Yannick that I would go, this is a defining solo.
right,
Whereas Dave and the rest of them, now they're all stellar. And I think the biggest thing I'll give Yannick credit for, and once again, not to be harsh on the man, the live stage work went up 20-fold, 30-fold, where it wasn't just two guys standing in front of the ramps.
yeah.
There
This
was
guy's
activity.
full of
Yeah,
energy.
and I think that's the thing is I think live, it's there.
Yeah,
You need them. You need that extra. That's why you see so many bands now when they tour live, they'll have the backing band, just to give that extra live punch.
yep,
They have the benefit of having that both in studio and in live. And I could not imagine, the band going back to just two guitars. But there's just something iconic about a Murray to Smith, Smith to Murray flow that when you compare it to a Murray to Gears flow in their songs, it just wasn't the same. It's two competing guitarists
right.
in many ways. And maybe that's just my view on it. But some of the stellar playing, like, my God, the fingers of that man, it reminds me of Steve Vai. And maybe that's what it is. I respect him as a Steve Vai-ish type
Right,
player, but I cannot picture Steve Vai playing in Maiden.
right.
I can picture Roy Z playing in Maiden, if you follow my gist. In any case, long story short there. The 90s, I guess is what I'm saying, was a bit painful for me
Yep,
because a lot of band members left and whatnot. But
yep.
in 2000, they all came back, and a lot of people rediscovered Maiden, or that was their first introduction to Maiden. And you've gone to all the shows since then. So I
Oh
know
yeah,
we're
absolutely.
running low
Yeah,
on
yeah.
time, and I'm sure we're going to have more opportunities to talk. But walk me through, for those that may not have experienced what I consider to be the best of Maiden, as good as the 80s were, as good as Paul Di'Anno with Phantom of the Opera and all that has the history, and you won't deny that. The stuff that came from Bruce going off for 10 years and going to Sarajevo, Adrian going off for 10 years and doing the stuff he did, Steve having to deal with the realities of two horrible albums in my mind, and then come back with Brave New World in 2000. When you first heard Brave New World.
Oh, exciting to hear that he was coming back because that whole period in the '90s that you were talking about, that was when grunge came in as well,
Yes.
right? So metal took a
A
big
huge hit.
dive. Like you were going to sold out shows at Maple Leaf Gardens for Iron Maiden, and then all of a sudden you were at a general admission, and there was still room left
Yeah.
in the room to see them. Like the things were just seemed on a decline, and it just in metal in general
Yeah.
in that era, grunge had
Well, even
really top.
Metallica was in their Load and Reload and a
Yep.
few other stuff in that time frame as well, right?
And then it
yeah.
was nice, like so. Dickinson coming back to the band almost seemed like metal's coming back.
Metal's
Like,
coming
not
back.
that it ever went away for
No.
us that listened to it, but just in that the public realm and the excitement about it, and that they were going to be filling rooms again, and that we're going to see the Maiden that we saw back in the day, like that, and just the song.
The complexity and the quality of it all.
Yeah.
The maturing that came of it. Like it wasn't script. Like when I think of the Paul Di'Anno years, I think a lot of them, as revolution as they were, in hindsight, are formulaic in many ways. When you listen to some of the stuff in the last 10 years of Maiden, it's all over the place in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for the most part, each song holds their own. Like there's not a lot of horrible stinkers, whereas you can take something like No Prayer for the Dying and pick 10. I'm being harsh. Well, favorite song off of No Prayer for the Dying.
Oh.
Can you pick one?
It's
a hard album to pick from. There's a few good ones, don't get me wrong. But it's not one that you pick as your go-to album.
No.
Fear of the Dark, we know what the go-to song is on that. If you were to pick Virtual 11, can you pick one song that's not The Gambler and the Whatever?
I cannot.
No. And then what was the one prior to that? The one with Lord of the Flies, the first Bailey one. I forget what it's called all of a sudden. The one where Eddie is not Eddie, is a different artist. New singer and a new look. Yeah, exactly. Man on the Edge is the only one that I would pick off that one, which is stellar as a Bruce
song.
Dickinson song. You know what I mean? When he does that, when they did that 1999 tour where he just re-warmed up and you started hearing some of these songs from those albums done with Bruce.
Yeah, Man on the Edge is great. Clairvoyant or Klansman is great. Yeah.
And you see, once again, Klansman, to this day, that plays live so well.
Yeah.
They're there, but it's not like something like, when I listen to, let's say, A Matter of Life and Death, which... What I loved about that one was when they first did the first leg of the tour, they basically said just the new shit.
Yes.
Okay, and I love the fact that they played the entire album. I was so happy to experience that. I got what people were saying, but you know what? This is good.
Yes.
And as an album, it reminded me in many ways of Seventh Son because, it just had that a feel of an arc without it being an arc.
Yep.
And to be able to see that live played beginning to end, songs that you'll never ever hear them play ever again.
Absolutely.
Like when you see the Abbey Road brighter than a Thousand Sun cut that they did, which is off that album.
That Abbey Road.
Oh my
amazing.
God, the audio coming out of his voice, and to do that live and whatnot. So when I think of an album like that, there's very few stinkers. Now I don't remember all the songs, but I don't think of stinkers in the last 10 years. So Brave New World obviously came into play from a concert point of view. You attended that one? You went to that one?
Oh, yeah. Everything from Brave New World on, I went to because it was then like, this is the band. No matter when they come around, that's the I got to go to that show.
Yeah.
So any tour that they did, I made sure that I was there.
Yeah, I wish I could have done that. Like I tended to skip one just because of either finances or time or whatnot, or a certain album didn't hit me a certain way. But I'll tell you, the one that I regret not going to was the second album, Death on the Road.
Dance of
Death.
Yeah.
The live production. Now, granted, I got to see it on the DVD. You get to see, but it was like when he does Dance of Death live, when they do Passchendaele live, and and the list goes on.
There's a song on that album called "Face in the Sand." I listen to it all the time, and I'd never hear anyone talk about it. But it's a slow build, long, instrumental section, but just a brilliant song.
Yeah,
and that's one of my favorite Maiden songs actually.
And yet, as you say, most people would never,
Yep.
And this is why I love some of those live albums is to hear those songs played live.
Yeah.
There's especially when you get the crowd energy. Like I said, you as much as I appreciate something like "Hallowed Be Thy Name" on the album, there's nothing compared to that live.
Yeah. And I think that's too why they're getting such a new audience.
Yeah.
young people going out and seeing them because they're hearing about their parents,
Mm.
or their uncles talking about this band Iron Maiden. They're going and they're seeing a live band like Iron Maiden perform the way they do, hearing the audience react the way they do, and that's an experience.
Yeah.
It's really pretty an amazing thing.
And for the most part, it's not as crazy as some of the other metal shows that you might get thrown into. The mosh pits aren't as stupid in some cases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a fun bounce.
It's a fun bounce.
A bounce pit.
There's very little anger
Yeah.
at a Maiden show.
Yeah,
As you said it best. It's a fun bounce. That's
Yeah.
what a nice mosh pit feels like, where
totally,
you're just
yeah.
bouncing off the people enjoy,
Yeah.
as opposed to the angry,
Yeah.
whatever. But the live aspect of seeing that band, and we're both about to go see them. Well, I'm hoping to go. Supposedly, I have tickets until the day I won't actually know. Legacy of the Beast tour, which is.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Do you think it's the last one? Do you think they're gonna? Do you think the entire band's gonna be able to tour again? I'm skipping forward here, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't seem to slow down.
They don't,
I don't go to these shows and like, oh, you know what? This is it. Like when you see, like I saw Ozzy 10 years ago,
and you thought that was
like,
it.
Oh boy, like this is probably about it. And then he kept touring, and I didn't go anymore because I saw him with Sabbath a few years back, but the whole Ozzy thing, it just felt like it was slowing down. Right, everything was tuned down, like
Yeah.
three semitones or four.
When I think of
didn't sound the
Ozzy,
same anymore.
and when I think of Ozzy, I think of him as the live at Budokan, where he's got Robert Trujillo on bass, and he's got Zach on guitar, and he's got, what was it, the Soundgarden drummer? Was it the one with the dreadlock? Was that the one?
Yeah.
And to me, that was Ozzy at his best. No offense to Randy. Randy was stellar. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But in terms of the band that he had put together on that particular tour, and his voice was still good. And it wasn't what it is now. No offense. Because it's still better than my voice, so who am I to say anything bad? But yeah, whenever I see Ozzy, I don't think I'd want to ever see him anything after that.
Yeah,
there comes a time, and I think to me, and this is kind of why I was asking, is as much as I would gladly go see them again, I think I'm going in with this concert with a mindset of, this is going to be a stellar first experience for Karen, which is, especially considering that there's going to be a lot more stage work in it, which is nice because they could actually pull that off. Great first introduction to her. If it's the last one, what a fine way to end it, because that is a stellar tour, and you've done yourself a service. You have not cheated and looked at the set list,
no way,
or any of the video or whatnot.
I don't want to know anything. I want to be there, experience it, and see it happen in front of me. I've seen the images of Bruce, jumping in the plane above him. But that's it. I don't want to know anything else.
No, it's the image of Bruce jumping. What concert?
Yeah.
What has he not jumped?
But with that
the Spitfire,
the Spitfire above him, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it reminds me almost as when the big tank came out during Iron Man during the Matter of Life and Death.
Oh, yeah,
you just had that feeling of, oh my God, they've took over the stage.
Yeah.
And going back to that the Somewhere in Time tour that you were talking about, that really being able to take that, and I think that the story play through the songs as well. And there's there's a few songs that are on that set, that. Well, not giving anything away, but Where Eagles Dare. Mm-hmm. I love that song. Yeah. I absolutely love that song. And to get to see that live, because I don't think it's ever been played live for me. I don't think it's ever been in any of the sets I've seen, because it's a fairly complicated drum bit, for the most part. And I'm looking forward to that one. That one, when that beat kicks in, it's stellar. So what we're going to do is after that show, we're going to be getting into the November timeframe, because it's August for the show. We're going to get back together. We're going to do a review of our shared experience of that show, assuming you're interested. And at that point in time, we were going to double down on the film festival and give that its proper justice.
Sure, I'm happy to.